Okay, my name is Cheryl Collier. I'm an associate professor of political science at the University of Windsor, and I study gender and politics. One of the areas specifically that I study is the area of public policy for women in particularly two areas, child care policy and violence against women policy. And I look at it not at a national level, and we tend to, in Canada, focus at the national level, but I look more at what's known as the meso level, or the provincial level in Canada, the state level in the United States. And I look comparatively at the lower level of politics and the lower level of government as opposed to the higher level of government between different countries. What's interesting, and I guess what matters about my research, is that I'm looking at an area of government that tends to be understudied. It's not as grand an area to focus on as the national level government is, but it is one that makes more of the decisions globally, particularly in federal systems like Canada or the United States, that matter more to women and families. So if we're interested in social policy, it's important to study and pay attention to the provincial level in Canada or the state level in the United States. One of the things that I think is important about my research is that I get to really understand the complexity of public policy, that there are a lot of actors involved, not just at the provincial level, but at the local municipal level or at the federal level, that tend to have something to say about these policy areas. They can sometimes impede the progress in those areas, or they can help facilitate them. I also tend to look at political parties, because political parties can do the same things. They can impede or facilitate progress in those areas. Lately, what we see, or we tend to see in social policy areas, particularly in the two areas that I study, child care and violence against women, is that because it does cross barriers a bit between different levels of government, that governments tend to blame one another instead of doing actually something positive in both of those areas. There's, of course, policy debates about how much government should do. That tends to fall into political party areas, but for the most part, Canada has a fairly good welfare state, and we do tend to invest in some kind of state support, either for childcare for needy people, poor people, to help people get into the workforce, or on the violence side, to punish people that are perpetrators of a specific kind of violence that's aimed more towards women, and of course, relatedly to children, oftentimes domestic violence that is in the home. And this is something that has grown over the years, the attention, at least government attention, to those two policy areas, and I think it's a really important area for us to continue to study, continue to ask questions about whether or not government's doing enough to eradicate some of the problems associated with violence, and of course to alleviate some of the stresses on families associated with childcare.